So I'm out here on my photo expedition. I am out in the forest preserve near the school where I work, and I like to come here a lot in different seasons just to see what's different. So as I'm coming to this place in the spring, I realize that everything's this bright citrusy green, so I'm not going to get a lot of contrast between the different colors of the leaves. But the great thing about that is that as I'm shooting this, I can start to think about how I want to use infrared. The citrusy green is the perfect color to try and flip when you're doing that editing in Photoshop. So we'll take a peek at that later. So since I can't get a variation of a lot of different color, I'm going to start to look for things like leading lines, S-curves, landscape composition rules that could be really interesting. So here we are in Lightroom CC, and we are going to look at a couple of really fun ways to edit in black and white in early spring. So we're going to look at infrared editing and how that's different from just your standard black and white. So I have this image here that I've already cropped. I've used leading lines to kind of lead your eye down this path. And I want to first just pop it into black and white so you can see what we have. Now notice everything pretty much flattens out. I have a few bits of contrast from the dark of the trees, but the ground versus the tree leaves are pretty much the same. So we want to be able to play with some things here. Now, as you know, our normal thing to do is take our highlights down, our shadows up to help balance things out, enhance our whites, deepen our blacks. Now that does a lot more. You can kind of see our before and after. That's going to be okay. But with the early spring, you get this really fun citrusy thing happening with your light greens. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into our presets instead. So of course you have all these presets. I can see what landscape looks like. That's a little brighter. I could do high contrast and really deepen those shadows and deepen the blacks, punch it up if I want some texture. But the one that I like the most is infrared. Now what infrared is going to do is it's going to take those bright greens and bright yellows and it's going to turn them into snow white. And it's going to take your other colors and deepen them into a deep black. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now remember, the nice thing in Lightroom is that it tells you what it's doing. So it took the highlights all the way down. So I'm going to close this up for a second and scroll down through here. And in my black and white mixer, I'm going to see that the yellows and the greens are the ones that have been taken all the way up. So if I take this back here, we have a lot more of what we started with of just our standard black and white editing. But when I push the yellow and the green all the way up, it turns into that snowy white. Now I know there's some orange and things in the trees, so if I wanted to get a little bit more darkness, I could pull my red and my orange down and just have a little bit more shadow. The blue is going to be in your sky, so be careful, you're going to get a solarized effect if you pull that too dark. Decide where you want. But that's just kind of the first edit of what you can do with this. You can still go back in and decide if you like a little more contrast, if you want to darken the exposure at all. But what I really like about this is that sort of snowy effect. So I'm going to keep this pretty bright. Now let's try it again on another image. Again, you can see I was walking through the forest here. I found this really interesting structure that someone built. I have some light greens, I have some deep blues in here, but pretty much my green is even across the board. There's not a lot of leaves, it's really early spring, so I have brown and a little bit of light green. So I'm going to go back into that preset, see what my landscape looks like, not bad. See what extra detail would look like. To me, that's just too much edging on there. It's really hard to separate the trees from the ground, it's just over textured. So I'm going to go down into that infrared. And I really like this because I get the really darkness of the trees, and yet I get that really bright white, especially you can see it right here, of the really light green leaves turning into white. Let's look again at our black and white mixer, see what's happened. My yellow is at 100%, my green is at 100%, aqua has also been moved up a little bit as well. You can still go in anytime you want and play with these and see what does that do for the ground. Does that lighten it? Does that darken it? Where do you find that you enjoy that? Some of them, you may think that there should be a color there, but it's not anything in there. So play around, see what you want. I've already cropped this. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to adjust just a few things to my liking. And I'm ready to kick it out. So I want to show you some of the befores and afters of things I found on that trip, but that's just a really quick way in early spring to get some really nice black and white